Just a heads up, we're going to cover some really sensitive topics today. So trigger warning, this is not a podcast that I would listen to in the car with kids or around young kids, but just be in a safe place for what you need and make sure you have access to resources because we are going to cover some tough topics about humanity. Welcome back. I have shit to say with a lot of people in the peanut gallery today. So I'm going to introduce, we of course have Brian, our producer, who might shout some shit from behind the scenes. We've got Mackenzie that you kind of haven't met yet, but I've mentioned, who's like taking notes of all the wild shit that we say. And I have our second guest ever on the podcast, Brittany. What do you want to, I'm like, what do we want to say about you, Brittany? What do you want me to say about you? Brittany and I have known each other forever and ever.
Yeah.
And ever and ever. Almost half my life I've known you.
Yeah, 2010 we met.
We're old as fuck.
You didn't have to go there.
I mean,
2010
wise,
could have been like,
wise.
Yeah.
I say we're wise.
It could have been like we met in kindergarten.
It's correct. So Brittany is an art therapist.
Correct.
And a counselor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what else do you want to say about you? She loves self-compassion. We'll talk about that later. She'll be back to discuss that.
Yes, love self-compassion. I'm also an artist, a big sister.
All the identities.
Yeah.
An auntie.
An auntie multiple times now. It's just great.
Crushing it.
Yes.
So magical question. We're going to start asking our guests a wild question. This came up while we were having lunch before the podcast. I need to know how many unread emails you have.
That's the one we're going with?
Yes, that's the one we're going with. We need to check. How many in the little alert, how many unread emails do you have right now?
Okay. 39,354, and that's not including, no, that is including my work email. Yeah.
There you go. And then the other one you brought up was how many photos you've stored, because Brittany is also good at keeping receipts for proof of experience, of all the things, of all the experiences.
Currently have 22,796 photos.
Wild.
And I think you also wanted to know how many tabs I have open.
Oh, I forgot about that one. Yeah.
Currently.
How many tabs open?
221.
You're doing a lot of work. As opposed to Brian. Brian, you said you have 5 unread emails right now?
5. Maybe with both accounts, 10.
Oh, see, you're crushing that to-do list. And like barely any photos because you upload them to your server. If we asked you about your servers, there would be like millions.
Easily.
Okay.
I mean, I've been at the tracker
This is the dawn of time. Since Ansel Adams. No, that's not true. And how many tabs open do you have? None? What? Okay, that's okay. I have not looked at mine, so we'll...
I open up tab history once I open it back up, but I don't.
Listen, I feel like tabs open is just like versions of bookmarks.
Yeah.
So...
I got to go back to those thoughts that I had.
Okay. Glad we had that talk.
Yeah.
What a great intro. So switching topics, I have asked Brittany to cover a few different topics, but today we want to get a little more serious because we have both had a topic come up with clients in the world for ourselves. We want to talk about intrusive thoughts and suicidal ideation. Do you want to share a little bit about kind of maybe the difference between those two things? Because that's like full on clinical jargon that people use.
Yeah.
I feel like it's been a little normalized.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that people know that they're not the same thing.
Intrusive thoughts and suicidal ideation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like one can lead to the other.
For sure. And they can overlap.
They overlap, but they don't necessarily have to be the same. Like how would you define intrusive thoughts?
Thoughts that like come to you and interrupt you and that you don't want, that are like against your values and morals, that kind of disturb you in some way. They're just like, you know, like you're driving on the expressway and you're like, what if I just went like this really quick? And then you're like, that was an intrusive thought. Let me just
Well, most people don't know that that's an intrusive thought.
Yeah.
The average therapist will know that, or people in therapy might know that, right? But
like everyone has them, but I don't think everyone like stops to like maybe
We'll go back to when you said everyone has them. I think that's an important thing because we want to normalize some of this stuff. So,
I mean, I guess I don't know everyone, but
I would say
assume
most people have them, right?
Yeah.
So like they come. So for me personally, I can share like postpartum and after lots of like traumatic experiences in my own life, or I was commuting. The commuting one is a good one, right? Like
you're just driving a long time, and sometimes you just like zone out, and you're like, what would happen if I accidentally went like this?
Correct, or what would happen? And some of them aren't even things you would do. So like I used to have thoughts when I was commuting where it would be like, what if somebody plowed in the back of my car and I got in a really bad wreck and I died and then nobody knew where I was because I'm so far away from home? Like they're pretty, they can go down the rabbit hole Alice in Wonderland style pretty deep, right?
Right.
But there's other things that we have that are like, what if I just never woke up tomorrow? What if I, right? Like,
I mean, I think, you know, being responsible for a child when I'm babysitting my niece and stuff, that there's times where I have intrusive thoughts of like, what would happen if she, like, what if I fell down the stairs with her and she died?
Trigger.
And like, I did
fall down the stairs with my child. So.
I have fell down the stairs with my brother.
Yeah, she was in a car seat. She's safe. She's all fine. All good.
Everyone's good. But the intrusive thoughts feel really scary, you know, because they're not what we would, like, it's not things we're going through on a day-to-day basis.
They're also not always stuff we would do, right? Like, they're not always things that we would take action, right? So we think, like, mainstream media will talk about, like, self-harm, cutting, wanting to die by different means, right? Like, and of course, like, trigger warning, right?
Yeah.
We should go back and record that. But, right? So there's, like, pieces of it that mainstream media is like fueling that are about actions we would take to end our life, and that is more suicidal ideation and suicide,
and
like correct,
right? Or like intrusive thoughts are like things, you know, the thoughts that come and go, like clouds passing on the sky and stuff, but they're like little storm clouds that are like lightning or something, and so you're like, whoa, what is that? Is it gonna storm? And it was just passing.
Well, you hope it just passed.
Yeah.
Right? Because sometimes we grab onto them and we're like,
yeah,
oh, do I really think that? Like, do I really feel that? Right?
I think the key is to like know that it's normal to have intrusive thoughts. And so that we don't have to follow that. We can kind of like see that it happened and move on. You know, like.
Is it normal or is it just common?
Maybe common. That's probably a better word for it.
It's like hard, right? Because it's like we don't want to normalize it. We more want to make it known that people have them and lots of people have them and people don't talk about them. Yeah. I don't always know that people know they're having them until they have somebody to talk about it with. And I think that's the part too, is because they can come so fleeting. Yeah. Right? Like, so intrusive thoughts can pop up at any point and any time of the day. You can be like, oh my gosh. So like, I don't really feel that way. Yeah. And some of them might be like, I do feel that way, or I am struggling with that thing. And so I'm thinking or ruminating or like overly thinking about something. I might ride the merry-go-round over and over again about it. Like,
I think it depends like what state you're in too, you know, like the more stressed, or if I'm like not very stimulated and stuff, my brain has more space to pay attention to the intrusive thoughts. Or if I'm stressed, it wants something to grab onto, you know, where like when we're more content or relaxed state, there might not be as many intrusive thoughts.
Or they might feel more jolting, right? Sometimes when we're more stressed, it might feel like, oh yeah, that's par for the course. My life sucks right now. So like, of course I'm thinking that way. Yeah. Like, it's fucking wild though.
It is.
So recently, I had a client who she's like worked really hard. Like she's had struggled with intrusive thoughts pretty much her whole life. And I know we've talked about this because you have some clients too. And she's like, why, like I've done so well. I haven't had them in a while, had a stressful experience over the weekend, and basically was like, I'm fucked. Why am I thinking this way again? Right? Like she's just like, I thought I was healed. Now right? Like now I'm having these thoughts. Now I'm going to pack on that I'm in a fucking worse place than I've been before. I thought I was better, but now I'm worse. And really like we started to have this conversation. I'm intrigued about your thoughts about this, is like, once your mind is open to that thought process, like once the door is open, you know the path, right? Like once I know how to drive to a place, like once I've gotten late night Taco Bell, feels like an intrusive thought too.
Once I've had sugar, once I've like tasted ice cream,
it's
like
a
now I
little
know.
easier to go there. Like
Yeah.
I know the path, I know how much it's going to cost. I know, like, and your brain can automatically go there without thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it brings up that quote that I reminded you of on our first day of grad school of a mind that is stretched by new experiences can never go back to its old dimensions. And I know that's like, I like to think of that in a very positive way of like, you know, like with growth, but I feel like it is also with intrusive thoughts or suicidal ideation. Once my mind has gone there, it can't forget that that's a possibility.
It's fucked.
And it's just wild.
Yeah. So I guess that's the other thing too, is like, how do we normalize that it's a thing that you don't like, you can't unsee or unknow those things.
You don't get like a brain like wash and be like, oh, like I never thought
Wouldn't that be nice? Like the red pill or the blue pill?
Yeah.
That would be nice.
I don't know if I would want to though.
Oh, I would, but just for a weekend.
Yeah.
I'd be game for that. But yeah, it's like this thing of like, if I know that path exists, sometimes my mind will go down that path whether I want it to.
It's a neural pathway,
not.
right? Like that pathway got open.
Talking brain science, smarty pants.
I like that stuff, you know.
It's true.
I think it's helpful to know that there is a science behind it. It's not just you making up something, that like your brain went down this pathway and now that is a path it can take again if you get stressed, if you're, you know, just kind of going about your day, like there's an intrusive thought, that pathway was opened.
Well, and so I guess let's talk about that, right? Like, it doesn't mean that you want to die. It doesn't mean that you necessarily like need to go to the hospital. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's something terribly wrong with you mentally, that you're super fucked up in the head or crazy or all the things we hear, right? Like, what does it mean?
Yeah.
Like, it means that that's your way of coping.
Yeah. For sure. And I think too, it's knowing that like at any point you can work on choosing different pathways, and like sometimes people find comfort in the pathways that they've already like formed, right? Like knowing that, you know, at one point I felt suicidal, that like if things got so bad, I could end it, and that's the end. That's the end. So like that trap door is now opened. And so worst case scenario, I don't make it, right? And that it can be comforting to people.
Well, it sounds like you're also talking about control.
Yeah.
Right? Like when
there
we
is
have
an option.
no control.
Yeah.
And there like nothing in our life.
Like I wouldn't have to suffer
that's
forever.
That's the ultimate control.
Yeah. Like if suffering got too bad for someone, that they know like, okay, I've had this thought before. I've had this either intrusive thought or suicidal ideation like type thought, that okay, if I was suffering so bad that I couldn't take it anymore, I know there is a way out. It doesn't mean you're going to take that way out or that you want to take that way out. It's just like a comfort for the times that we're not feeling well, that we're going through things, that things feel terrible.
They do a lot.
Yeah.
Also, this world's super fucked right now.
Yeah.
Right? So it's probably going to be, I think, and I guess that's the thing is like in your practice and like your life, have you seen this increase or stay the same or decrease? Or
I don't know if I've noticed like a specific change in that. I think I've noticed that like more clients are comfortable sharing that that's something that they've had thoughts of, and that they don't think it's ever going to go away, that it's always going to be there to some extent, and have expressed how that doesn't feel scary to them. It feels like comfort. And that's something I feel like is completely true for a lot of people that have experienced that.
That's a nice way to think about it. I have people on the other side that are like, what the fuck? Yeah. I need to stop thinking like this.
Yeah.
Right? So like that's also a really healthy way to look at it. I think a lot of people don't think about it in that healthy way too, right? You're talking about people in therapy.
Yeah.
And I know like our audience isn't necessarily all in therapy too, but it's helpful to see that that is possible, that people can understand or conceptualize it in that way. That it like, it doesn't need to be something that's acted on.
Yeah.
And every thought doesn't need to be held.
Yeah, or believed, right? Like it can be like, oh, that.
You're talking about wild shit. What do you mean every thought I have, I don't have to believe?
Well, you
what?
know. there's so many thoughts, and a lot of times it's our perception. It's not reality. It's how we're perceiving the world based on what we've gone through and things like that. And so that's why it is helpful to talk about certain things. And when you have someone that you can trust and say, like, I still have suicidal thoughts sometimes. And honestly, they feel like, I don't know, like they're always going to be there. And if you trust the person you're talking to and you have a good experience with that, then maybe it doesn't feel as disturbing as when someone's like, oh, you need to go to the hospital. Oh my gosh, are you going to kill yourself? And then you're going to shut that part down, or you're going to want to hide that part. And that's where it's in shame. And that's where it feels scary, when instead if someone holds it and it's like, wow, that seems like that's heavy sometimes. How do you feel about it?
I mean, so yeah, you're covering like how to respond to people that are struggling with that. And if you're not a therapist or you're not somebody that is like trained in like social services or how to assess for those things, like people still need help and support, but it doesn't have to be that extreme, right? Like people come to it with fear. Like before I was a therapist, if somebody came to me and told me that, I'd be like, holy shit,
which is totally
terrified for you.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, and just like to clarify, it's totally different than like I was sharing an experience like on New Year's Eve one time. I was downtown and I was like standing on my friend's balcony and I could see this man in the street and he kept like going into it. She lived on Michigan Avenue and he kept kind of like going into traffic and I was like, what is going on here? Like, is he under the influence? Like, and he kept going and like facing traffic and I was like, oh, he is attempting suicide right now. That is totally different than suicidal ideation, right?
Yeah, so talk about that a little bit. Yeah.
So like in that sense, I'm not going to be like, oh, it's totally normal to face traffic on Michigan Avenue on New Year's Eve. Like I immediately was like, someone call 911. I'm going downstairs and sitting with this, like getting him out of traffic, right? Because I'm not going to watch someone die on New Year's Eve or any time if possible to like do something.
Right.
And like that doesn't need this like, like, oh, like that needs the hospitalization, right? Like we're actively trying to die. And
like there's a plan, there's action, there's
which is different than being like, sometimes I just don't want to exist anymore. Sometimes life feels so bad that I don't want to be here. And sometimes I think about how I would want to die or something, and I don't have a plan to do that, but like I know that there's an option to do that.
Yeah. Thoughts about like what people in the world should know if they're facing somebody that is dealing with either intrusive thoughts or suicidal ideation?
Just that it's probably way more common than like mainstream media makes it seem. And that maybe staying open and curious instead of like responding with stress
or fear
would maybe help that person like not shut down and turn to shame and like be like, no one can handle this feeling, and it's not everyone's job. And maybe knowing yourself too, if someone comes to you with those thoughts or feelings that they're having, if you're like, yeah, this is a lot for me, like knowing that that's okay too. Like you don't have to be that for everyone.
Totally. And the best resource for anybody nationwide is 988, right? Like calling the suicide hotline, getting people
even texting
support
with them, like just I'm sure like even just saying to someone that has experience dealing with this more often, instead of maybe like a friend that has never had those thoughts and stuff, that they're like very scared about it, it might feel more comforting to talk to someone that deals with this more regularly and saying like, I'm having this thought that like, I wish I wasn't here anymore. Things were really bad today and my brain can't stop thinking about how it would feel to not be here. Then saying it to a friend where they're like, oh, like having a big feelings of their own.
Yeah. Kind of from that shifting gear. So we've both worked inpatient before, in a variety of different settings as well. And so we've kind of seen the spectrum from like least acute in a private practice setting from a therapy all the way to like the most restrictive. And so I want to talk a little bit about that, of like how often, and you might have different opinions than me, but like how often the hospital gets used as a threat or gets used as like a policing system or a way to control.
My first reaction is like all the time. Like,
Yeah.
and I don't want to feel that way necessarily, because I think that the hospital can be really helpful if someone really cannot keep themselves safe or is completely psychotic outside of their baseline, right? Like if your baseline is a little bit delusional, a little bit having some hallucinations, like, and that's something that doesn't
Right, that you
interrupt
live
your
with
life.
every day, right?
You don't
and that
need
you
the hospital.
manage, right?
If it's interrupting your life and you're like doing things, breaking the law, or like spending all your money, or like to an extreme, and like, you know, really need the help, then the hospital can be helpful. But the hospital, I mean, most of them are not non-for-profit. They are for-profit, and they are getting money from your insurance. And there is an administrator, and there's a CEO, and there's people that are looking to fill those beds.
Blech.
Period.
Blech.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why it didn't last very long, because it feels icky to say like, well, your insurance said you could stay 5 days when they might be ready to go. They might be like, I have a therapist
Or
outside.
vice versa, right? Your insurance isn't going to pay, so
Yeah.
we're going to kick you out, even though
Yeah,
you'll be
both
back
suck.
in a few days, right? Like,
It's
and
terrible.
or I mean, and so you worked more with adults. I worked more with pediatric, and so we kind of cover the lifespan. But there's an interesting experience there where so it's like a cycle, right? Like,
Yeah.
so like we went to school together
Yeah.
where you're taught, be afraid that if your client is struggling,
Yeah.
right? Like you're like a new fresh baby therapist
Yeah.
and you're going to save the world.
Yeah.
And like, when really like, it's not your job to save people.
Right.
And then you're taught like, be afraid, follow this protocol. If somebody expresses like wanting to unalive themselves or not wanting to wake up, there's not really a system other than like send them to the hospital, take them to the emergency room, get them SASed from a school, get them whatever, this, that, and the other. And half the time there hasn't even really been, right, what we're talking about of like, I have intrusive thoughts or I have suicidalation. I want to do this. I want to unalive myself. I have a plan and I have means for the plan, right?
Yep.
If I want to do this thing, can I even access it? And like for those like kind of listening or watching, there's that piece where sometimes people have crazy wild ways that they think they might do that, and there's no possible way that they can do that.
Again, that's more of like that neural pathway that got opened, like, hey, just in case you ever feel like you can't handle suffering anymore and things get so bad that you can't handle it, here's a creative idea. And it doesn't feel like a friendly, thing. It's like,
it's
whoa.
definitely not a friendly thing.
No, but
but often we send people to the hospital when it is not, somebody weaving in and out of traffic on purpose or some of these other pieces we're talking about. And like, it really becomes this interesting fight, I feel like, where it's like our minds want control. Yeah. And when we have no control, we think about unaliving ourselves or we think about how we would be unalived, right?
Yeah.
And then providers or people, caretakers are like, oh, I can't control this person. Yeah. And and like it comes from a place of like, I don't want them to die.
Yeah.
And then they try to control them by sending them to this place that will control the ultimate, right?
And take away their control.
And take away every right that they have, right? Like you can't have phone calls unless I tell you. You can't eat unless I tell you. You're wearing hospital scrubs.
So it's the opposite of helpful in those situations where it's a thought and like a symptom and not a behavior, right?
Yeah. It's wild.
It is.
But yet we keep doing it.
Yeah.
Feels like a mini prison system.
Yeah, I think.
Not sure if I can say that on this podcast, but I'm going to.
Yeah, I mean.
Because it's wild.
I don't work for them anymore, so I feel like I'd say that too.
Fair. True. But
it is a prison system. There's some hospitals where they can go outside. Newer hospitals have that ability, and I think that's really great. Again, I think the hospital can be really helpful when you cannot keep yourself safe, because I hope everyone gets this message, but you're alive for a reason, and the suffering's not going to last forever, and there is help. And I want people to know that. And if you feel like you don't want to be alive anymore, and you want to do something, you're going to do something, then the hospital is a great place for you to be so that you can get help and start on that journey.
But an option.
Yeah. Like, it's probably the best option if you can't keep yourself safe.
And you
right?
don't have other people that would help
Yeah.
with those things. Yeah. I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
But it's hard, right? Because
Yeah.
it is this policing system. I recently moderated a panel where somebody on the panel had shared that he was struggling and that he was basically sent against his will. And that happens so often, right? Like there's the ability for people to sign people in or to make those decisions. And right, I can argue both sides. On some level, I can understand. And the other, like, what does it mean to force help on somebody
Right.
that maybe doesn't need that level of help or like doesn't want that type of help, or that type of help ends up harming them more, like and it's interesting, right? Because they think it's very like altruistic, but it is a business.
Yeah.
I mean, what we do is business too. It's fucked.
You bring up a lot.
Sorry.
No, it's good.
It's because it's wild, right? Like
It
there's
is.
a lot of systems that are at play, and I think the more we normalize and we talk about the things that are occurring in our minds and our bodies, the less likely we are to just purposely harm each other, right?
Yeah.
Like,
And maybe like in a future world, the hospital isn't this what feels like a prison system for a lot of people, even though it's not, you know, as long as probably a prison sentence, hopefully.
I mean, that's like
Definitely
a
not in
whole
the state
other
of Illinois.
podcast on
Yeah.
power and superiority, because I
Right.
do think at some level is like, is that even possible? Like, is it possible to create safe spaces for people that do struggle with that, right? Because we have a history, we have institutionalized people, right? Like where we work, there's one that used to be in the next town over, right? And so it is interesting that they haven't necessarily disappeared, right? We haven't really deinstitutionalized
Right.
our society. We've just made them smaller and called them different things.
Yeah.
Right.
Like
so it's not a whole
intermediate care.
city where we just stick people.
Yeah.
It's residentials, it's DCFS,
Nursing homes.
it's nursing homes, it's inpatient, it's the jail system. And so I think as much as it's like we don't want people to fear having these experiences, there is very real fear, because when you have those experiences, right? Like, I mean, I postpartum for sure struggled with my own level of intrusive thoughts and like grief and loss and suicidal ideation. And I was like, I can't tell people that. I'm a therapist. Like, I can't admit to people that I think about these things. Like, I'm supposed to have it all together. Like, I can't seek treatment that way. Like, and that's not healthy either, right? I think that's why it's important for me to talk about it. That's
where it's like we're supposed to be human still.
We
It's crazy,
are,
right? But like
supposed to be, or just are.
We just are, you know? Like we need to be. And so that original or old way of thinking of like, yeah, therapists don't have problems, you know, like they don't have anxiety. Why did we become
wild.
Therapists? You know, like
physician heal thyself, right?
Yeah, you know,
but that's a dangerous premise that like doesn't get talked about either, is like how, and we've covered this in past episodes, but I think it's a thread that runs through all of these podcasts that we're talking about, is how do people choose providers that are healthy, that are self-aware, that are doing their own work. I just had a conversation with a friend of ours, Carissa, who will be on the podcast later, but she was like, if I've learned anything, she's not a therapist. She's like, I've basically learned that I need to ask my therapist if they are going to therapy, and I need to judge their reaction to that, because it is that piece, right? Like, we should be going to therapy because we are human, because we do deal with our stuff. Like, and I think that it's a little more nuanced than that. Even as we're talking, I'm like having moments where I'm like, there are periods of time in my life where I haven't been a great therapist because of what I have dealing with and what I have to like process through myself. Or I'm a good therapist for this type of client, but not for that type of client, because I'm working through my own stuff in these areas, right? Like postpartum, there was no way I could see moms that were postpartum because I like hadn't done my journey like on that piece. And it doesn't necessarily mean that as a therapist we have to have gone through stuff. Like your therapist doesn't have to have experienced, I mean, I would argue that every therapist has experienced intrusive thoughts, but always, never, those are like dangerous
Right.
words to use. But I do think, right, being able to ask, do you go to therapy? What is your experience with understanding or having worked with intrusive thoughts or suicidal ideation? I know we ask if people have experienced that before,
Yeah.
but if people don't feel comfortable or safe,
Yeah.
and I think as therapists, it is our kind of like job and our like ethical code to make people feel safe and heard and
Yeah.
seen. Like this person had shared that like he had shared in a session and then he opened the door and they were there to cart him off to like the hospital.
That's
Your
terrifying.
face is telling me everything, right? But that
Like,
is
that's-
what we're taught in grad school is like, you have to protect your license. You could be found liable. You could be this. They're drilling into you. Be afraid. Be afraid. Be afraid.
Right, and it comes down back to what you've said before is like power and control, right? Like we want to have control over other people. We want to have control over ourselves, all these things. But like people have autonomy. And if they're going to...
Do they?
I mean, they're supposed to.
We want them to.
Yeah.
But we spend a lot of time taking people's autonomy.
Yeah.
Right?
I personally try not to.
I'm not saying you don't. Like,
like-
you do or don't, right? What did we say earlier? Like, we don't.
Yeah.
That's kind of a wild way to say it. But I think it's really important when people are dealing with this. And I think anybody who's seeking therapy is often seeking therapy to understand their thoughts. And so even if you're listening to this and you don't think that you've experienced intrusive thoughts, but maybe we're talking about what they are, you're like, oh, I actually have had those. Because thinking about thinking, it's kind of a really fucking wild cycle to think about, right? Again, how many times can I say thinking? It's very meta, which people are like, I'm out. They probably stopped listening like 10 minutes ago.
This is really for me and you. This is really just...
True.
It's fine.
Historical documentation for like future generations. But I think it is an interesting piece of like, how do we know how to like therapy really is about learning how to think about our thinking, about how to understand our thinking. We don't always have to do something about it, but as therapists, we think we do.
Yeah.
And it's not even our job, right? Like, yes, if somebody is actively in that place.
Like they're in traffic, right? Like, I'm not going to be
or they're
like,
hey,
I'm
leaving here,
hey,
I'm going home, this is my plan, this is what I'm going to do.
I'm not going to be like, hey, guys, totally normal to want to walk into traffic on Michigan Avenue. You know, let me know if you want help. No, like, at that point, it's like if someone's drowning, I'm not like, here's a life raft. No, I'm going out there to get you. Like, I'm going to save you. I'm like, get you help or whatever we want to call it. You know, like, I'm not going to be like, it's normal at that point. When we're out of the extreme, when we're out of the crisis, then we can see like, it's okay. We don't have to respond to those thoughts. We can notice that they came. We don't have to do anything about them.
Right. And if he was sitting at the coffee shop and he's just saying, I just don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah.
There's a different intervention than just like,
Yeah.
like you're going to the hospital.
Yeah.
And I think it's much more nuanced. And I think I just go back to like, as much as we often try to like minimize or think that therapy is like this thing that is, you know, I think Rich Roll said it this week on a podcast. He said indulgent. And like, it was really interesting. He was like, therapy isn't indulgent, but people think it is.
Yeah.
Or it's just for the people that can afford it, or it, right? Like it's not. It's really just about learning about who you are and how you think and what you need when things come up like this. And that like you're not the only person that is thinking like that, right? I think so often we meet with clients that whether it's intrusive thoughts or ways they think about their family, that they're just like, oh, nobody thinks about it this way.
Or like, I should feel ashamed. And right. And like something Brene Brown says, you know, like shame can't exist when there's empathy. When someone hears what you're saying and they're not like, oh, you need to go to the hospital, or like, wow, your family's really fucked. You know, like sometimes that feels gratifying, you know.
Sometimes you're like, yeah, I'll come to the family picnic.
Yeah, you're like, I really need someone to tell me that they also agree my family's crazy, you know, or something like that. But that if we're met with empathy, then I don't have to shut that feeling down and feel like something's wrong with me because I've had this thought.
Well, and so wouldn't you say that that's the antidote to intrusive thoughts?
Mm-hmm. It is.
Is to like hear and see.
So is
and
part
like,
of self-compassion. not to do our other topic.
That is going to be a part 2 with Brittany,
listen,
people. I'm just telling you. Her
I
and
just
I
want you to
fight
know
about this.
what you just
I
said
don't
was
hate
like,
self-compassion.
I don't think you do, but I just wanted to bring it up that
Okay.
you were literally talking about one of the components of
I
self-compassion,
get that.
the common humanity, that like you're not the only one that's ever had these thoughts before. You're not the only one that feels this way, and like that's not meant to be dismissive, like, oh, like everyone has pain or something, but
Listen,
it's like
I can
this
get
is part of
behind-
the human experience.
I can get behind all of that,
Yeah.
but I would say that I view it through an Adlerian lens,
Yeah.
and that would be Gemeinschaftsgefühl, right? Which
Mhm.
is like social interest and community
Yeah.
interest and like we're all interconnected, which Matt talked about in a few
Yeah.
podcasts ago about like how we are all interconnected and what our identities look like and intersectionality and things like that too. So I don't hate it.
I didn't even say
we'll
that.
get into that and that's like foreshadowing for
Yeah.
a fight we're about to
But
have.
I just wanted, like, when you were saying that, it was like immediately, you know, in my brain, common humanity came out.
Totally.
Of,
Common
like,
humanity matters.
that has helped me through some really hard times where I've been like, how could you mess up in this way? How could you do this? Like, how could, whatever it is. And if I could just, even if I didn't believe it at the time, and I normalized the feeling that I was getting from the experience of like, it feels terrible to like do something that you regret or that you made a mistake on, and then you sit in this shame and this like ick.
Well, then you feel trapped, right?
And
It's
yeah,
about being
and
backed into a corner and not knowing what else to do.
And then you ruminate and you keep cycling. And if I can like just repeat, even if I'm not believing it yet, like you're not the only one that's messed up. This is part of being human. Then I can like pivot and I can make a choice and I can like make a decision and move forward and do something else and like not have to believe that thought that I am a big screw up, that I'm a fuck up, that I like am a terrible person. I can say like, you're like, yeah, we don't like that choice we made, or we don't like that we made this mistake. What are we going to do from here?
Totally. That's a great place to kind of wrap up and to kind of bring it full circle. I think that brings in, you brought up Brene Brown earlier, and she also talks about how shame grows in secret.
Yeah.
And so really what we're talking about is that you don't need to live in secrecy. You don't need to think all these thoughts in secret, that you need to have like a safe, supportive place.
And not someone from like looking down and being like,
yeah,
oh,
like down their nose.
Yeah, like they're like, oh, it sucks that you're having those thoughts. That's really bad. And yikes. Ugh.
You know, those people are not in your support circle.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. But yeah, any other like big takeaways for our community on like intrusive thoughts and therapy and the things we talked about today?
I think just like when you're more honest with yourself and more authentic and genuine with yourself about what you're going through, you find the people that understand you and that you feel more safe with, right? Like when we're putting on those masks to be like, I've never had that thought, like, they're crazy, you know?
What?
Then we're making friends like that. We're hanging out with people like that. And the more authentic and genuine you are, the more you attract people that maybe have been through similar experiences. Because like attracts like, right? Like, you know, there's people that have been through similar experiences that won't be outraged by your thoughts, that will normalize it and won't make you feel ashamed. And so I think the key is like being yourself and knowing that there's nothing wrong with you for however you are.
Totally. And we've both experienced it.
Yeah.
Like we've both been there. So.
And it sucks and it's okay. And there's a fly distracting me.
There is a fly.
It's like a big one too.
Squirrel.
Yeah. Sorry, ADHD flaring up.
We will definitely have Brittany back for our follow-up conversation on self-compassion, but I'm glad we had that talk.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks.
If you made it to the end of this podcast, thanks for listening. As always, if this episode brought up anything that you'd like to delve into deeper on a one-on-one basis or any kind of mental health crisis that you might be going through, please see the show notes for resources and references as well. Thanks.